From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
In Syria, more than 5,000 people are dead. This cannot go on. In the name of humanity, it is time for the international community to act.
International pressure mounts on Syria as the death toll continues to rise. We'll go to Damascus to speak with underground human rights lawyer Razan Zaitouneh. Then, are voting rights here under attack?
This year, we've seen more than 30 states attack the right to vote. We've seen 268 electoral votes of the 270 needed to become president potentially impacted by these laws.
We'll speak with NAACP CEO Ben Jealous and Bob Edgar of Common Cause. Then we'll talk to economics professor Gar Alperovitz, who argues in today's New York Times the economy might be becoming more democratic. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The U.S. has formally declared an end to the Iraq War after an 8.5-year-long occupation. In a ceremony earlier today, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta hailed what he called, quote, an independent, free and sovereign Iraq after a lot of blood spilled by Iraqis and Americans. Panetta's declaration effectively ends the Iraq War 2 weeks earlier than planned, with the year-end deadline for the withdrawal of U.S. troops. The U.S. is leaving behind a $6 billion embassy and a diplomatic effort to be run by the State Department and staffed with more than 16,000 private contractors. In a ceremony at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, President Obama paid tribute to a contingent of returning troops.
So as your Commander-in-Chief, and on behalf of a grateful nation, I'm proud to finally say these two words, and I know your families agree. Welcome home. Welcome home. Welcome home.
As the U.S. leaves Iraq, the New York Times has recovered hundreds of pages of documents detailing internal interrogations of U.S. Marines over the 2005 Haditha massacre. The documents were found among scores of other classified material at a junkyard outside Baghdad. The Marines describe killing civilians on a regular basis, with many snapping photos of the violence. One sergeant testified he would order his men to shoot children in vehicles that failed to stop at military checkpoints. The Obama administration has withdrawn its veto threat of a military spending bill after lawmakers made adjustments to provisions on indefinite detention. The National Defense Authorization Act would authorize the military to jail anyone it considers a terrorism suspect anywhere in the world, including the United States, without charge or trial. After the White House vowed to veto the measure, House and Senate lawmakers made several revisions, including dropping a ban on civilian courts for al-Qaeda suspects and adding more leeway for exceptions on holding terror suspects in military custody. Although the White House says it's satisfied with the changes, civil liberties groups are continuing to denounce the bill. A federal survey has provided new figures on the prevalence of sexual violence against women in the United States. The National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey found nearly 1 in 5 U.S. women have been sexually assaulted at some time in their lives, and 1 in 4 women the victim of severe violence by a boyfriend or husband. 1 in 6 women has experienced a stalking experience that made her fearful for her own life or that of a close relative or friend. More than 1 million women reported being the victims of rape or an attempted rape over a 12-month period. The mobile technology firm Carrier IQ is being investigated for allegations its software was used to track the user activity of around 150 million cell phone users and pass their information onto carriers without permission. The Federal Trade Commission launched the probe following the disclosure smartphones with Carrier IQ software captured every keystroke and text message and sent the data to the user's cell phone provider. 3 of the 4 major cellular providers, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint, say they use Carrier IQ software. Apple says its Carrier IQ will be removed in future software updates. Meanwhile, Carrier IQ is also engulfed in another controversy over over its suspected ties to law enforcement surveillance. The controversy erupted after the FBI denied a journalist's Freedom of Information Act request for documents on data analysis that were gathered with Carrier IQ software. The FBI confirmed its pertinent information, but denied to release it on the grounds it falls under, quote, law enforcement records. The FBI so far has refused to deny whether it's using Carrier IQ for surveillance activities. Newly resurgent Republican presidential hopeful Newt Gingrich was protested Wednesday during a speech at the University of Iowa. A protester led the crowd in an Occupy Wall Street-style mic check. With the Iowa caucuses 3 weeks away, Gingrich is holding a lead over Mitt Romney in national polls for the Republican nomination. As American wages fail to keep up with inflation, a new survey shows the nation's top CEOs have received massive pay increases. According to the Guardian newspaper, the country's leading executives enjoyed pay increases of between 27% and 40% last year. Time magazine has chosen the protester for its vaunted annual Person of the Year. Time magazine editor Jim Frederick said the choice reflected the growth of people's movements from Tunisia to Tahrir Square to Occupy Wall Street.
Time chose the protester, the global protester, as Time's 2011 Person of the Year because for the past 20, 25 years, almost a full generation, protest had stopped being a really viable way to change the political order. And then suddenly, almost out of nowhere, all across the globe, you have global mass market protests that, we're 2 regimes down and counting, whether it's in Russia and London, Wall Street, and all across the Middle East. Suddenly, the protest has become one of the ways that people are actually taking back political power.
Hundreds of Seattle high school students walked out of classes Wednesday to protest state budget cuts to education. The students marched from a number of Seattle area high schools before meeting up at the University of Washington for a joint rally. The U.S. Marine Corps is being accused of embellishing and exaggerating the actions of a corporal recently awarded the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest award for valor. On September 15th, President Obama bestowed the medal on Dakota Meyer for supposedly carrying out a number of acts, including rescuing 24 Afghan soldiers, saving 13 U.S. service members, and personally killing 8 insurgents at extremely close range. According to dozens of documents uncovered by McClatchy News, crucial parts of the story are either untrue, unsubstantiated, or exaggerated. At the time Meyer was awarded his medal, lawmakers and officers were reportedly pressuring the military to award more medals of honor because few were conferred in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's unclear if the White House knew President Obama was detailing an embellished story when presenting Meyer with the award. And the alleged U.S. Army whistleblower Private Bradley Manning is scheduled to make his first court appearance Friday, more than a year and a half after his arrest for allegedly passing on diplomatic cables to WikiLeaks. Members of the Bradley Manning Support Network have announced plans for a march outside the gates of Fort Meade, Maryland, where Manning will face a military hearing. Kevin Zeese is an attorney with the Bradley Manning Support Network.
The people should be prosecuted, not Bradley Manning. He's accused of letting the truth out. He's not accused of doing any criminal activity. He's accused of letting the truth out, and he should be given an award for that, not prosecuted. He's facing the death penalty potentially. He's facing the death penalty for exposing war crimes.
Over 50 demonstrations around the world are planned for Saturday as part of a global day of solidarity to mark Manning's 24th birthday. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around